Splatoon 3 is incredibly well designed, contrary to the belief of a few angry people on Twitter right now that only complain about Splatoon because they love and play it so much. Anyways, today I want to take a closer look at sub and special weapons, their design, purpose and balance in the game. In this video series, I analyze various aspects of Splatoon 3's game design. Consider watching the first video, how Splatoon 3 is incredibly well designed, if you have not watched it yet, before returning to this one, as it will give you more context about some concepts I will talk about. First, a very short recap of what I said in the first video. If you still have these concepts in mind, you can skip to this timestamp. The core of what makes games be fun is the risk and reward of actions the player has the power to decide over, the push and pull between different actions. The risk of an action should be proportional to the reward of it. The fun, therefore, comes from developing a strategy to deal with the risk and reward. In Splatoon, this push and pull is most noticeable in its core mechanic of swimming in ink to refill the ammunition of your weapon, which is used to paint more ground with your ink. Swimming in ink is a state of lower risk, as you can move quickly and are relatively concealed from enemies, but low reward as you cannot fire your weapon. Kit form is a state of higher risk but high reward. There also is a fundamental interdependency between the two actions. Even in fights, every missed shot creates movement space for you and limits the enemies. Now, let's talk about specials and subs. When analyzing game design, it is often valuable to ask the most fundamental question you can about a design element. Why does it exist? What purpose does it fulfill? And what would the game look like if it did not exist? Let's start off with specials. Special weapons are something that alters the game in a way which goes beyond the capabilities of a main or sub weapon. They give you abilities that are fundamentally more creative, interesting and most importantly, powerfully unbalanced than normal gameplay. Specials require charging and mostly have little uptime, even for a game as fast-paced as Splatoon. Thus, specials give the player a high spike of power, a state of high reward and disproportionately low risk, that is balanced through having little uptime and high charge times. Being charged through painting the ground, they also give more depth and incentive to the core gameplay loop of Splatoon. It allows for gear abilities and other game mechanics around charging the special. In ranked modes, for example, you passively gain special points if the other team is in the lead. In Tower Control and Clan Blitz, the game additionally rewards you with special charge when playing the objective to partially account for the disadvantage that usually has. In Splat Zones and Rainmaker, you gain special when the other team is in control or pushing the Rainmaker. This ensures the balancing of risk and reward when playing the objective, making it so that gaining points requires a substantial advantage and keeping the game in a push and pull between teams. Additionally, specials allow for more freedom of creativity from a developer's point of view, as they are not bound to rules as strictly as, for example, main weapons are. Look at all these unique mechanics and connections between gameplay elements created because of this. From a more competitive perspective, specials are something that keeps the game fast-paced and in a state of push and pull. Competitive teams become very good at controlling space, that is, stopping enemy players from entering their zone of control using main and sub weapons. Specials are a way of breaking that stalemate and creating an opportunity to gain space. Without specials, such unique mechanics and interactions, which to some degree define the franchise of Splatoon, would not exist, and the game would be a lot slower for competitive players, as such ways to break the stalemate would not exist. Without specials, such power spikes, which create fun experiences simply because they are unbalanced, would not exist. Unbalanced in this context meaning in the sense of that specific short interaction of when the special is up, not in comparison to the game of Splatoon as a whole, because in this way, specials are mostly very well balanced. From a competitive perspective, some specials are a bit too powerful for the game right now, and some are still undertuned, but in comparison to the game's launch, special balance has gotten a lot healthier. Different specials do very different things. Some are centered around splatting enemy squids, while others are there to displace the enemy or push into a certain area. Some are fundamentally selfish, whilst others focus on supporting and playing with your teammates. Some give you unique modes of movement, and some are transformative, taking away your main and sub weapon. Due to the unique purpose every special has, it is important for them to be on a main weapon that synergizes well with it. The splatter shot likes its Trizuka so much because it acts as a threatening long-range option that the main weapon does not have. In general, many short-ranged weapons need such specials to have an option to deal with long range. There are also other ways to deal with this, for example approaching with cover, using teammates as distractions or using sub-weapons, but I think it is no coincidence that competitively strong short-range weapons have usually had whatever long-range special is the most oppressive at the given time. It combines the ability to aggressively move up inherent to short range with the ability to impact further distance opponents. The only exception of this I can think of would be the NZAP-85, which has the supportive tacticula and is just the weapon that can get it the quickest and that additionally can fight quite well. We will continue the discussion of weapon kits later, but for now we must talk about the other half of the kit, the sub-weapon. Here again, ask yourself what purpose sub-weapons fulfill and what the game would look like without them. Sub-weapons are all throwable or deployable objects that take considerable amounts of your ink tank to use. Their function differs greatly, but all have the purpose of giving a unique utility to weapons, therefore, if the kit is designed well, mitigating weaknesses, complementing or adding to the playstyle of the main weapon. The Splat Bomb, Suction Bomb, Auto Bomb, Torpedo and Toxic Mist all displace enemies, some forcing and others incentivizing enemy squids to move out of the targeted area. This can be very valuable for weapons that have no other way to effectively displace enemies at such distances. More broadly, it can be stated that these sub-weapons, as well as Ink Mine, control space, some offensively and some defensively. Defensively controlling space is especially useful for slow and long range weapons such as the E-liter that want to stay at a distance. Ink Mine has the additional utility of locating enemies. Same can be done with point sensor, torpedo, line marker, auto bomb, and to some degree beacon because it reveals close by enemies on the map. Such sub-weapons are impactful for weapons that cannot paint well but want to easily spot sharking enemies anyways, or weapons that have unique ways of hitting enemies whilst not being able to see them. Especially for slow weapons, the movement tool that the burst bomb, line marker, sprinkler and curling bomb provide can be enormously useful. As an example, being able to quickly paint the ground with sprinkler is great for the dynamo roller that otherwise requires its slow roller swing animation. Some sub-weapons are able to directly add to the fighting power of the main weapon as a damage combo tool. Prime examples of this are the burst bomb, fizzy bomb, line marker and torpedo. To some degree this even applies to bombs with their outside 30 damage hitbox, which is something for example the vanilla slosher can play around, as long as the enemy doesn't use one sub of bomb defense, in which case the combo doesn't work anymore, but that should be the topic of another video. Finally, the beacon serves as a tool to control the pace of gameplay by allowing super jumps to them and therefore more aggressive play from the team as a whole. Thus, sub-weapons fulfill a lot of different utilities that all significantly alter the playstyle of a given main weapon. They add more depth to the game by creating different strategies to use their value most effectively whilst minimizing the impact of their ink cost and other weaknesses. It is also very interesting to look at them under the lens of risk and reward. They have a unique reward that cannot be provided by anything else in the game. This is again, like with specials, balanced through high downtime due to their high ink consumption, running into the risk of using them and then having no ink in a fight. Sub-weapon balance is overall quite good, especially after the LDE nerf targeting excessive bomb spam. Competitively speaking, bombs still provide more utility than other sub-weapons, but the development team has managed to make every sub-weapon somewhat competitively viable. I want to make clear that my comments on the game's balance are all from a competitive perspective, and casually every sub and special weapon is equally strong and fun. Now, let's return to our weapon kit discussion. Firstly, I want to repeat from my first video that weapon kits are necessary for the game. You might not like the kit your favorite weapon has, but it is not valid to criticize the system itself because of that. Different main weapons are not the same in terms of how powerful they are, and that is a good thing. Balancing them to be all at one level would risk removing the identity and uniqueness of certain weapons. It is not reasonably possible to balance Tetra Dualies and the Aerospray to be equally powerful, because they do very different things. The kit a weapon receives plays a part in balancing it, thus allowing for more extreme main weapons. In removing kits and replacing them with the ability to choose sub and special, you risk having to balance main weapons, subs and specials separately, or having to balance the main weapon around its strongest possible kit. However, having a kit system also means that some weapons are stuck to the playstyles of the only or few kits they have, and some cool kits will never see the light of day. The challenge from a development team's point of view, therefore, is creating interesting, unique and balanced kits at a speed that satisfies the audience. The second of which definitely is not fulfilled. The community's widespread opinion that I agree with is that they really should bring out more kits per season. I do think every weapon should have a second kit by now, and should have 3 kits at the end of the game's update cycle, something that is unlikely to still happen unless the speed of new kits improves during this second year of Splatoon 3. The first point can definitely be argued about. In my opinion, the kits we've had so far have mostly given access to new, interesting playstyles for the weapons, and are mostly balanced very well. There are a few kits that I think were a step in the wrong direction, examples being the Deppel's Nouveau and Splash Neo, that are both extremely similar to another weapon kit and therefore compete with that weapon. There are other weapons I want to have certain specials, but I understand that not every dream kit can come to reality. In my opinion, the kits we receive are mostly at a good quality. It would just be better for them to be created and released faster. I think an interesting solution for some of these problems would be to create a new challenge mode, where the kit can be freely chosen. I think this would fit in with the other chaotic challenges that have shown to throw out the game's balance for the sake of fun and unique rule sets. Another thing I'd quickly like to point out is the graphical and sound design of subs and specials. Each sub and special looks very unique, which makes them easily recognizable and differentiable. Apart from different materials, shapes and sizes than anything else in the game, they also all have distinct silhouettes. This is supported by all the sound effects to really create a unique identity for each sub and special. Additionally, look how the game alerts you when your special is charged by playing a sound effect and making your hair and the special charge meter glow. Cool stuff. In conclusion, subs and specials are an integral part of Splatoon, and the third game in the series has, in my opinion, mostly perfected its game design in these two aspects. The subs and specials are creative and mostly well balanced. They increase the game's depth tenfold by creating room for different strategies to utilize these short spikes of power. And while new weapon kits may release at a slower rate than we would hope for, they are still very well balanced and fun additions to the game. To answer the question from the beginning, without sub and special weapons, the game would feel so much blander. There would be no damage combo tools, no movement options, nothing to add or save you from your main weapon. No ways to break a stalemate, no power spikes and no way to make content from them. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Since I've never really talked about this, I'll take this opportunity to shortly talk about my goals and motivations for this channel. I want to continue making videos about Splatoon's game design, but will also create some other videos about game development and some personal projects of mine. I also want to create some content around the competitive scene. If this piques your interest, you may consider subscribing. My goals are to invoke people's interest in Splatoon and game development, as well as motivating and helping people to join the competitive scene. I also try to spread a voice of reason in areas where I believe that to be necessary.